One of the most difficult things about doing YouTube is actually that it's sometimes difficult to look at your own creations from an outside point of view and to understand what the appeal is, right? So, when you start making YouTube content in those early days, you're just doing it for yourself. You're just doing it for you. And you have to do it that way, because if you didn't, you would quit the first time a video gets 0 views. So you have to start out making videos for yourself. And the weird thing about YouTube for me is that when I first started Quinton Reviews in 2016, I was approaching everything with a fake it till you make it mentality. And what that meant was, every video I would usually start off by saying something like, you guys remember in the last video I talked about blah 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 blah. Well, this time you guys are going to be excited to hear that da 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 and da 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 da. And I always thought it was really funny that I was doing that in the moment, because for the first at least 8 months I was doing videos, my videos would get like 10 views, like not a joke. If my videos got 200 views, I was like, shit, yeah, yes, video blew up, awesome day. And so all that time for that early content, I was truly faking the idea that there was something iconic about my presence, and kind of hoping that if I kept up that momentum, eventually some people would be convinced, more convinced than I am. And I guess eventually it worked. It just took a long time from my point of view. Because I really think it wasn't until this decade that I started making content that I liked, that my audience also liked. And that's kind of the weird thing now, is that I've been doing YouTube 9.5 years. Well, more like 9.25 actually. Been doing YouTube for 9.25 years, and suddenly I have people that can recognize my brand, arguably for the first time, ever, if we're looking at this moment starting in 2021 or maybe 2020. We're kind of approaching a new era for the channel in the first time in a long time, and it's just weird to me to think about the fact that I have people who look at my content and they recognize stuff, and they think, oh, that's a Quinton thing. And at the same time, I even have fans that come up to me and say, hey, I went back and I rewatched all your videos from 2016. Those are underrated videos. I liked the vibe of those videos, and this is what I liked about them, and I have questions about this and this and this. And that's really strange to me, again, because at the time, I was just pretending that people cared when nobody did. And now I'm kind of at this weird point where I think about sometimes the fact that I have been doing YouTube for almost a decade, but so much of the iconography of my brand is stuff from the past 3 or 4 years. That's kind of weird from my perspective, right? Because you look at other YouTubers who have been doing it as long as I have, and most of them figured their shit out first month, started doing things this way, and this way, and then they just stuck with that forever. So you look at other YouTubers that have been going for a decade or more, and the content they made in their first year is just a lower quality incarnation of the content that they make in the current day. But I don't think that's true for my stuff. I think that I'm constantly evolving and kind of changing and trying to reapproach what being a YouTuber means and what being a content creator means to me and what kind of stuff I want to put out there. And I'd argue that's kind of one of the reasons that I've been able to survive, but still, that means when I turn over my shoulder, it's a really weird landscape that I'm leaving behind me. And this is a lot of fluff, I guess, because one of the things I guess I want to talk about is the question, if I change my set, will that annoy people? I'm currently approaching a situation where I have the opportunity to kind of rethink my set and how I want to do things, and I've been really studying a lot of things, and I have a lot of really big ideas. But at the same time, I sometimes wonder myself, what if what I have right now is gold? And what if by screwing around with my ideas too much, I kind of leave the golden era of my channel being a success? That's something I stress about all the time. That, like, the luck and fortune that has come to me in these last few years is just going to dry up. Because I remember what it was like to be a once-a-week YouTuber, and it was awful. And I was unhappy, and I was unbalanced, and everybody knew that. And everyone, like, followed me for it. Like, oh, he's going to do something cringe this week. And so I really like the idea of my stuff just being enjoyed by a good amount of people and giving me more stability in life. And so any little change I do with my presentation, I'm thinking to myself, well, what if this is the straw that breaks the camel's back? And so there's two big changes that I think I want to make to this set. Not immediately, but probably in the next year. Change number one, I think I want this white wall to be blue. And that way the orange Garfields will pop against the wall. Change number two, I think I want to flip the set. And what I mean by that is simply, if, you know, I know it's hard for you guys to imagine like the 3D reality of what my set looks like right now, because you always see little snippets at a time. The reality is, over there behind the camera is the pinboard. Up there in that corner is a hammock filled with Garfields, and I just installed this over here on this wall is a bunch of shelves that have more like generic oddities and toys and collectibles. And with that in mind, considering that I quite like that organization and I quite like having it set up this way, it's just weird that the Garfield is on this side of the room and then more of the generic toys are on this side of the room. Because in my opinion, it would make a lot more sense if the big Garfield was right under the Garfield hammock, and then, you know, the Shreks doll and all the generic toys and stuff were on this side of the set, right? And so I think I want to change that. I think I want to, you know, flip the set and have it the opposite way. But I'm honestly worried that if I do that, people are going to say, it's not the same. Oh, I miss white wall, Garfield on the right, Quinton. Is this the right side? Yeah, the Garfield on the right. They're going to say, oh, I miss white wall, Garfield on the right, Quinton. I don't like this blue wall, Garfield on the left, Quinton. And I think that's just silly. I'm sure that wouldn't happen. I'm sure people would joke about it, but it wouldn't actually be a reason to close the video. But I think this does highlight an interesting thing, as I was saying about being a YouTuber. And I've brought a prop to represent this to you guys. This is Mr. Porg Potato Head. This was a running joke I had on the channel that was permanently on the set. It is a Mr. Potato Head that I painted to look like a Porg, and that was the joke, that it's a Mr. Potato Head that's painted to look like a Porg, and he's named Mr. Porg Potato Head. And in the mid to late 2010s, I was really going ham with this joke, and I really, really wanted it to be a part of the brand. I wanted people to see Mr. Porg Potato Head and think, that's Quinton Reviews. And the thing is that it never caught on. In fact, now that I'm handling Mr. Porg Potato Head, dust and debris is flying all over the room because he has not been handled in forever, and he's just covered in, you know, all kinds of stuff. But I never had anybody go, Mr. Porg Potato Head, good to see him. I never had anybody comment about how comforting that part of the set is or how funny of a gag it is. In my head, it was part of the Quinton Reviews brand, but in practice, nobody cared. And one day I said to myself, hey, you know what? Let's take Mr. Porg Potato Head off the set. Let's try and switch things up. That's when I put the Pride VHS tapes in. And if people complain that Mr. Porg Potato Head is gone, we'll put him back in. And nobody has ever commented about it. I've never seen somebody say, hey, where did Mr. Porg Potato Head go? Why is he not on the set anymore? Nobody cares. And so I call this the Mr. Porg Potato Head effect, where the idea that the YouTuber has in his head of what is iconic about his channel and his brand and his presentation is not necessarily accurate to how the audience feels about that same topic. Because in my head, in the 2010s, Mr. Potato Head was essential to the Quinton Reviews brand, and now he's not in any of the videos, and nobody cares. I'm gonna set that over there. I do like to keep him because he is cute. So what's my point here? My point is that sometimes I find myself like double guessing my own understanding of what people want. I'll give you an example. I am constantly writing new pinboard segments because in my head, even though I started the pinboard thing with the Victorious videos, in my head, I want to permanently always do pinboard segments and always do that infinity gag where you see the previous segment. I always want to do that because I think, in my head, it's an iconic part of Quinton Reviews. But then some days, I'll be like planning out segments for a video and I think to myself, what if I'm wrong? What if people are getting really bored with seeing me point at a pinboard? What if people don't think it's iconic or recognizable as a Quinton Reviews thing? What if people think I'm just retreading ground because I'm lazy? And I think on those days I have to just kind of think about, you know, what people love, and people love the Victorious videos, and people love talking to me about the pinboard segments and all these other things. And I go, well, of course, people probably want more pinboard segments. But then I look at the set, right? And I think to myself, I don't even know about any of this. You know, this is my generic start of the video set. And this was designed knowing that my dad was going to do a video for the channel. This was designed so that I could make a version of it for my dad's childhood and for my childhood. And I even designed a version for my grandfather's childhood because I wanted him to cameo, but sadly he passed away before we could do that. But like I look at this and I look at all this and I say, does anybody like this stuff? Does anybody pay attention to what's going on back here? Because I put a lot of thought into this stuff. And I sometimes wonder myself, if I threw out this shelf, would people complain? Would they say, where the hell is the shelf? Or would they shrug and say, well, I wasn't really paying attention to the background? Because I think about that a lot, you know. I bring up Scott the Woz a lot because he's one of my top 3 YouTubers of all time. In my opinion, it's Defunct Land, Internet Comment Etiquette, Scott the Woz. But, you know, as a comparison, if Scott the Woz threw out that desk, or the Pepto-Bismol bottle, I'd be like, what the fuck, man? Bring the Pepto-Bismol back. But in my head, I don't know if I can imagine my audience having the same investment in, like, my presentation. Because I do things like change these stickers all the time, and I even change some of the rotation of these props, and I almost never see people talk about it. And that makes me wonder, am I doing something wrong with the set? Should the set be done in such a way that people are kind of, you know, studying the background and looking for these details and recognizing this as me, this as what Quinton Reviews is as a channel? And I'm really not sure. First of all, I'm not sure how I could change it. Second of all, I'm not sure if it matters. And third of all, maybe the point is that I should have confidence in what I want this to be, and that confidence will follow through to my audience. I had a point, but I forgot what it is. We're just going to wait a second. We're waiting for it to come back around is what we're doing. Oh, I think I remember now. And that's something I think about, to go back to what I was saying, that's something I think about a lot, because a lot of the time I'll be working something into a video, and I try and recognize the past decade of my life. I try and say, hey, I'm going to put a reference to this video from 2017 in. Because I'm always trying to give fan service to the few fans out there, all 12 of you, who started watching in 2016, 2017, 2018, and you're still here. And so I'm always like, how can I sneak in a reference to this 2018 video, to this 2016 review. And then there's some days where I think to myself, what if this isn't what the bulk of my audience wants? And a great example is Johnmas. Johnmas is a lore character that I introduced, I think 5 videos in 2016. I introduced him in a video you should not watch because it's not good. But Johnmas became my Mechakara. He became my lore guy. And I always was comforted by the fact that no matter how much I evolved, no matter how much my content changed, and no matter how much my audience, moved around and the demographics shifted and my presentation shifted and I was doing different things, Johnmas is probably going to show up at some point. And that's comforting to me because it shows some kind of legacy, some lineage to the content that I make, where you can go, wow, you can go back here and you can watch this, skit-filled review from 2016, and that leads into this 2017 video, and then he cameos in this sponsor segment, and then he's in this lore movie, and then he's in the Star Wars video, and then he shows up in the iCarly videos, and then he's in the Beverly Hillbillies video, spoiler. And I really like that. And there's a good amount of days where I'm working those segments in where I think to myself, I'm probably one of the few people on the planet that gives a shit about Johnmas. I'm sure most of my audience has no idea what's going on when he shows up. I'm sure a good amount of my audience starts skipping forward when he shows up. But god damn it, there's something special about it that makes me go, I've been doing something cool for the last 10 years. And it's fun to me. And if I had never changed, if I had never evolved, I'd still be filming videos in my bedroom at my parents' house, talking in front of a blue wall with a bunch of shelves, and working in all those little lore things. And so even though this is an important thing to say. I saw a viral tweet the other day that was very obviously about me, that was basically hinting that I'm ashamed of those early videos. I'm really not. I think there's something special and magical there. I was a teenager. I was just doing things for fun. I was trying to find out what worked. And I ended up finding out a lot of things that didn't work. And I think it's fun that that's where I started. I'm not ashamed. I'm kind of proud of that those 2016 videos are where I began. And in fact, when I'm writing videos more recently, I've been realizing that era of the channel, I'm pulling from more and more than I realized. I've been writing a script this week where I've been constantly working in these shots of me on the couch, commenting on the content, and throwing out one-liners. And I thought to myself recently, I wasn't doing a lot of these in the iCarly and Victoria's videos. It was mainly coming to me on the set. So where does this come from? And I realized this comes from those videos I shot in my parents' basement where I was sitting on the white couch and I'd just yell out, commentary. And a little bit of that is still Quinton Reviews to me. And so when I'm writing videos now, I'm still kind of pulling from some of that early stuff because I'm like, well, that's fun. And that felt like me. So I'm not ashamed to pull from all the different eras of my content. And I hope that the dedicated fans in my audience actually think it's cool that there is an evolution at play and that it's not just all the same. But that's an assumption, which is sometimes true and sometimes not true. And it's just one of those things where I get to decide what that old stuff has, what the meaning of that old stuff is to me. And the point is that even then, I'm glad that I evolved. I'm glad that I've changed, and I need to allow change to happen naturally. I need to allow my presentation to shift. Perhaps my videos need to get a little bit shorter. But I think when change does come, it won't be bad. And I might not blow up right away doing some new thing, but I think eventually everything will work out because it tends to. And yeah, I don't think the world would fall to pieces if I painted all my walls blue. And I put the Garfield on this side and the CX on this side. You know what I mean? And at least that's what I assume. And maybe it would be one of those things where people would think that it's cool. that they can watch a video and know, oh, this is an early 2020s video because the set looks like this. Or maybe people won't think that. Maybe people will be pissed off. I don't know. That's part of the fun. We get to find out together. Sometimes you record a video and you think to yourself, God damn, I hope when someone else watches this, I'm a little bit coherent at least. I've been Quinton Re2s, and that's all you need. Good for you, you look happy and healthy, not me. Good for you, like a damn sociopath. I love